shouldn't have even moved here.
Welcome to the Geek Legion of Doom.
William Bagley directs and writes Hold the Fort, a 2025 creature feature movie. Now, the title, Hold the Fort, you understand why it's called that in the movie, but I would have changed this name, because I do not think the name of this movie is doing it any favours. I would have called it Horde Mode. So, why do I say that? What's the movie all about? Okay, so it follows a couple who buy their first home, and they move into a seemingly idyllic area, and there is a homeowners association that they have basically agreed to join when they've kind of moved there, and they were sent a contract which they didn't bother reading. And it turns out that this particular kind of housing area, this estate, this suburb, whatever you want to call it, is actually located near a hellmouth. And in the contract of the homeowners association, which they didn't bother reading, it basically says that's effectively what you are agreeing to by moving there. You get a break on taxes, but you've got to deal with a variety of creatures. And once a year, the neighbours gather together in this, well, a place called the Fort, where they defend themselves from wave after wave of increasingly more dangerous creatures. What will happen? You'll have to watch the movie and find out. So let's discuss. Now, this is a low budget movie. Let's talk about what works. Firstly, it's a brisk, like 72 minutes or something like that. So this is a movie that's it gets started pretty quickly, and it doesn't hang around, and it doesn't overstay its welcome. So it's a nice kind of like relatively sort of quick movie that you can kind of get straight to the point and in with the action. So it's, you know, it's not a big movie on plot, I'll just say that, but you know, sometimes you just want to kind of relax and watch something which is simple and fun. And I think that's what this movie's biggest positive is. It's just a simple, fun creature feature movie with a variety of different kind of creatures and lots of violence. So the plot is quite simple, as I say. We follow our main couple, who are the new neighbours, who are pretty clueless about what's kind of going on, but everyone just assumes that they have read the contract and they're aware of what is going on. So they just kind of like talk to them like they are. Expect them to know what they're doing and things like this, which gives it some kind of some comedy moments. Yes, this is a movie that doesn't take itself particularly seriously, you might say, and I think that was probably the right approach. But there's some kind of fun characters here, I have to say. Everyone's kind of quite sort of over the top. At the same time, I do think they actually have some kind of quite nice character moments. There's kind of a bonding relationship with this guy. Our male main character and like another male neighbour who kind of initially they're at odds, but they sort of end up kind of like becoming sort of friendly and stuff. And I just quite like those things. And there's some kind of over the top sort of characters and stuff that they basically got this kind of like Rambo guy who they call McScruffy, who generally speaking they rely on to defend them, but this new couple unintentionally wounds him, and therefore they're kind of left sort of with their major kind of defensive weapon really incapacitated. So there's some kind of shenanigans afoot here, and as I said there, I think there's some variety of kind of creatures here. We've got witches, we've got werewolves, we've got zombies, among others. So you'll get a good bang for your buck with the kind of the creature feature, and there's a lot of practical effects here, a lot of kind of stunt work. There's some pretty impressive kind of fight sequences as well, I have to say, with this basically chaos erupting in this fort when a variety of kind of creatures end up getting access, and our neighbours have to kind of defend themselves. And yes, this movie does have its kind of amusing moments. As I've mentioned, its tongue is in its cheeks, so you know everyone here has got a kind of a wink and a smile, and it has this kind of fun vibe. It actually reminded me of the Peter Jackson movie Brain Dead, sometimes referred to as dead alive. But the main character of that, Lionel, I mean, they may have been going for a Bruce Campbell, but I actually think he's more of the main character from Brain Dead, that kind of look. This is our male neighbour who is just kind of like hapless guy who gets thrust to this position, ends up kind of getting covered in blood and things like this. So there's a lot of that kind of like that humour, if you like the sort of Evil Dead 2, or the kind of the early Peter Jackson stuff, that kind of that splatter humour. I would suggest maybe you might like this one. So what can we say that maybe detracts from this movie? As I've kind of mentioned here, I mean, plot isn't on the forefront of Bagley's mind here. It is Horde mode. That's what this movie is. It is basically a bunch of people holed up with a variety of different kind of creatures coming out this hellmouth and attacking in this place. That's it. A few shenanigans along the way, but that is the basic plot. So, not exactly deep stuff. I would say the movie does suffer from possibly a little bit of either lack of budget or lack of kind of like, or too much restraint. I was going to say lack of restraint, but no, it's too much restraint. Because the movie doesn't go quite as crazy as I think it could have done. Now, this was either down to a choice by the filmmakers or simply budgetary reasons. Because as fun as the concept sounds, it never gets as crazy or as over the top as you might think with that premise. You know, there's never like loads of creatures at once. It's kind of, you know, a sprinkling, shall we call it. So the concept is a fun one. And, you know, there are some kind of fun sequences to be had, and there are, you know, good, you know, practical VFX. I mean, they're on the low budget side, don't get me wrong here. There are some kind of weaker elements in regards to the VFX, practical and kind of, you know, sort of digital and everything. But, yeah, it could have been a little gorier, it could have been a little bit more kind of like over the top. And, you know, again, I suspect it might be down to budget more than anything else, but possibly, you know, you can think this is a good idea. It needed a kind of to go up a couple of plus points to really make it kind of stand out and be like a sort of you know, a splatter comedy classic, if that makes sense. As it stands at the moment, it's certainly a fun distraction, but it doesn't exactly sort of think, wow, that was an absolute banger, because it you know, it's ultimately doesn't quite go as far with the concept as I think it probably could have. Some of the comedy is a little broad, and at times I think the characters, for example, when our neighbours start dying, people are kind of non-reactive, or they're kind of taking it as a joke, to the point where it's like, you know, you can kind of buy into this as a horror comedy, so you can't take it too seriously. But when people are kind of like, just kind of like, when the kind of the neighbours are dying and stuff, and no one seems to really kind of react until kind of towards the end, you know, again, it sort of has that, where's the tone here? You know, horror comedies are a tricky one, and I think, you know, to get you invested, you can have a horror comedy, but you still want to have a degree of kind of latching onto characters that you can kind of see the kind of the almost like some sort of realism in them, even if it's an absurd situation. But characters here, as I say, some of the kind of the things that happen just push it a little bit into kind of parody. So, you know, up the gore, you know, make people a little bit more grounded. But you can have the same jokes, but just have their reactions a little bit more, I think, to be more human, I would say. As it stands, though, it's a fun movie, it's a breezy movie, it's lots of kind of like excitement, lots of variety. So come on, join the Horde. 6 out of 10 for me. What were your thoughts? If you've seen it, please leave me a comment, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.
Today's message is about B-movie loving and hitting that thumbs up button.